Now see if you can unpause it. If you, yes, I'll pause it.
Faith events, it can be the opposite, and we don't have any women. And so today we thought we'd focus actually on women and how we see ourselves and our faith and how that plays out in our lives. And of course, it's a shame that we can't meet in person, but this is as good as that, really. And what it does mean is that people can kind of zoom in from literally different places. I think there's people from not just in the local area, but further afield as well, which I think is great as part of this. So I'm hoping that today we can listen to our speakers, but really I want them to spark ideas and thoughts in your own mind. And please do think of questions and things that you might want to ask afterwards. We have Sybil, Linda, Harukiret, Sana and Madhu, all of whom are going to speak very soon. But before we do that, I actually just wanted to, I'm going to share my screen, and I just wanted to say that I wanted to use this event to honour and dedicate this to a friend and sister, Shobnam Sadik, who some of you will know from being in Slough. She was a councillor since I think 2016, and a mother of five, four quads and a daughter. She went abroad in March, just at the beginning of kind of lockdown, caught COVID and never came back. She died over there in horrible circumstances, and it's a very big loss for Slough. And of course, lots of other people have lost loved ones too, but we just wanted to use this. I know that if Shobnam was alive, she would have been here today with us. Madhu and I and her were a threesome and had some great conversations and had some great plans of work that we were going to do together. And unfortunately, she's no longer with us. So I just thought we could start off by just having a minute of silence for Shobnam, but also for the other families and people that we've lost during these times. So I'm just going to share my screen. So please just respect the minute, and then after that we'll get started. Thank you.
You turn your volume down.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have to. No.
Sorry? No, I'm turned it down.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to actually ask Linda, Hilliar, obviously through these very difficult COVID times that we've seen in the last few months, it's been, I think, particularly challenging for clergy and others who have to normally, you know, have had to help people. You haven't been able to hold ordinary funerals, and, you know, it's been very difficult. How do you think that's been, and any thoughts on that?
I think it's been very hard. I think it was particularly hard at the beginning when we didn't really know what was going on, and the government said no more than 6 people could be at a funeral. One of my colleagues took the funeral of somebody I knew very well, and I would have gone to the funeral had I been able to, but I couldn't. And he was very upset because at Slough Crematorium, the widow was sat in a chair in the middle of that chapel, unable to be comforted by anybody else because she lived on her own with her husband who died. And even her sons and daughters couldn't sit close to her. And he found that very hard. For me, the most important thing I do in ministry is actually care for the dying and the bereaved. And so I found it very difficult. I took a funeral immediately we went down into lockdown, not through COVID-19. And I couldn't go round and see the widow and her daughter. We had to meet on Zoom, and it's just not the same. And I'm a bit of a touchy-feely person. It's perhaps easier for a woman than a man. And I've always put my hand out, shaken hands. In some cases, to a widower, I've put my arm around him or my arm through his and sort of led him out of the chapel. And I found it very, very hard. And I'm sure ministers of all faiths feel the same, that and particularly when we can't be with somebody who's dying and assure them of God's love and that they are safe and there's nothing to be afraid of. It's very, very difficult for us all, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's not going to get easy, straight away either. We've still got difficult times ahead. So I think it's just a very good reminder of what we're still in and how we all need to try and look after each other as best as we can. And I have seen great things going on in our communities, but I think it's just worth remembering that there are people that are really struggling, and we just need to help people as best as we can. So thank you for that, Linda. So we're now going to hear from our speakers, and the way we're going to do this is that each one, so we have 5 amazing women from different backgrounds, different perspectives, and all of them are going to reflect on the question, what does faith mean to you as a woman in Slough or in Britain in 2020? So this will be very personal, and it's really about reflections. They're not here to represent the whole of the church or the whole of the Sikh faith or anything like that. It's very much a personal reflection. And as they're speaking, hopefully you can think of questions that you might want to ask, or you can put them in the chat and we'll pick them up after that. So I'm going to now first ask our first speaker, who is Rabbi Sybil Sheridan. Sybil is a writer, a British Reform rabbi, and was chair of the Assembly of Reform Rabbis UK from 2013 to 2015. She was until very recently a rabbi at West London Synagogue and is a part-time rabbi at Newcastle Reform Synagogue. She's written extensively, has an interest in interfaith dialogue, particularly specializing in Muslim and Jewish relations, is based in Maidenhead and is a dear friend of mine. So without any further ado, please listen and reflect on what Sybil has to share with us.
Thank you so much, Julie. It's a real pleasure to be here. I've always wanted to be involved in local interfaith work, but one of the problems of working basically elsewhere is really managing to find the time to be local. And one of the beauties of Zoom is that actually it doesn't matter where you are, you can join in so many more things. So thank you. The question is, what does faith mean to me as a woman in Slough and Britain in 2020? Well, I've only got 5 minutes, and I could go on and on for hours about faith as a woman of faith. It's still quite tough as a female religious leader, but I'm not going to talk about that today. I wanted to focus more at the end of this, the in 2020. And the Reverend Linda's already sort of touched on this, that how much COVID has affected my faith, I think faith in general. Just before lockdown, we in the Jewish community celebrated one of our more riotous festivals. Purim, it's a kind of carnival where we celebrate the story of Queen Esther, who saved the Jewish people from a genocide, largely by being just very beautiful and alluring and causing her husband to promise her whatever she wanted. But the tendency is to dress up, have big parties, drink rather more than we should. And in our case, my synagogue in London, we put on what's known as a Purim spiel, a play, a sort of a comic skit. And there were 20 of us crowded onto a tiny, tiny stage, making all sorts of jokes about COVID, and knocking elbows and very ostensibly not shaking hands and all those sorts of things. This was just a few days before the lockdown began. And the result was devastating, actually, for the Jewish community. In those first months, I think proportionally more Jews died of COVID than of any other ethnic community within the UK, largely because we had all been so engaged in the festival of Purim at that time. So the result was, as a rabbi, very much like Linda, the first few days of the lockdown, I was virtually living at the cemetery. There was funeral after funeral after funeral. The cemetery itself looked like the trenches from the First World War. Never seen anything like it. All these newly dug graves. And it was so tragic for the families that came for the funerals. Again, because they were not able to sit together necessarily. Many of them had not actually seen the person, their loved one, when they were in hospital, because they were not allowed to. So many people had died alone, without people being able to express to them their feelings, their love, their thoughts. And so much of my time was spent at that time comforting the bereaved, again, unable to see them beyond the funeral. The Jewish tradition is to have 7 days of Shiva, of mourning, where people go round to the family home, bringing food and sitting with them, being companions, so that if they want to speak about the loved one, they can, or if they want to sit in silence, they can do that. We were unable to do that. So you had the tragedy of a spouse, husband or wife, unable to say goodbye to their partner because they died in hospital, unable to be comforted by their family, unable to spend time with friends. It was devastating. And it was a true test, I think, of many people's faith. And then we discovered Zoom, and thank God for Zoom. It's not the same thing. But very quickly, we were able to find a way of reconnecting with people at a distance. And the synagogue where I worked very hard. It's a large central London synagogue of several thousand members strong. And we made the decision that every person over the age of 70 would receive a weekly phone call and help if they needed with shopping, to get prescriptions from the chemist, and maybe do some simple DIY jobs if needed. We had 500 people volunteering from the community, many of them over 70 themselves. So while they would be phoning somebody weekly, somebody else would be phoning them weekly. But it meant that nobody was totally alone throughout those 3 months of lockdown. And of course, many volunteers did more than phone once a week. They developed good friendships. And as anyone who's performed a good deed for another knows, that the benefits of giving to the community really do far outweigh the benefits of receiving. It was one of the greatest mitzvot, as we would call it in Judaism, of good deeds that we could do. And it showed a great bonus of a faith that's evolved around community action and activity. On a personal level, too, I think faith helped hugely. Judaism requires a great deal of daily personal prayer. 3 times a day are the fixed prayers. And those regular prayer times, I found, gave a great structure to a day, which was important. A structure to a day which when normally, it was structured by the usual commute to work and then spending time in the synagogue with other people and then coming home, all of that structure was lost. So those prayer times became fixed points around which you could do things. And I know personally, without them, I would have completely drifted. And this again is where online services came into their own. Reform Judaism offered sort of daily morning and evening prayers. And I had the opportunity of exploring other synagogues and the unique opportunity to experiment with different styles of worship. It was really comforting to be part of an online community and the chance to get to know others outside my own synagogue. But at the same time, of course, it's been a huge struggle. I think probably all religious leaders find that faith is a struggle. I may be a rabbi, but it's not always smooth sailing. Regular prayer can be a challenge, and there are times when it is agonizingly boring. And there are times when I really question the reality of God. I'm comforted by the fact that the word Israel actually means one who struggles with God. And indeed, there are enough examples in the Bible of our patriarchs and our matriarchs engaged in that same struggle. But when it comes to a crisis, being part of a religious community, sharing one's faith, both its ups and its downs, is of huge benefit. And we can see throughout this crisis how faith really has come into its own. More and more people are attending religious services. More and more people are thinking of their lives. We have no control. There are things beyond us that we have to accept. And how do we come to terms with it? But what does faith mean to me here in Slough in the UK in 2020? It is for me the community. It is action. It's doing one's best to better this world. That for me is faith. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sybil. I'm sure much food for thought and relatability for people there. So please do, if you've thought of any questions or things, just note them down and we can pick them up afterwards. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass now on to our next speaker, who is Harukiret Kaur. She was born in and raised in India, did her master's and worked as a lecturer there, and in 2011 she moved to England and is now the Sikh Studies Lead at Khalsa Secondary Academy. She's worked with a number of NGOs in India and was involved with work in her Gurdwara and is based in Northampton. And before you answer the question, Harukiret, I just wondered if you would just share with us the festival that has been important for Sikhs. Obviously, people hear about Diwali, but I know there was another Sikh festival yesterday. So maybe you could just give us a kind of snapshot of what that was, and then you can go into your answering of the question if you don't mind. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much, Madhuri, for this opportunity. I think there's so much to learn from this experience. So yes, first of all, I'm going to talk about how we celebrated Diwali and the Sikh festival, which is Bandi Chhod Divas at our school. I know it is very sad to hear the stories, how people are feeling in this time. But I would say, on the contrary, we are very fortunate having our own little community at the school. We see our students, our staff every day coming with lovely smiles, and we got to share and celebrate the festival with everyone. So this Bandi Chhod Divas, this is it has its own relevance and background when a sixth guru of Sikhs, he was in a prison, and he imprisoned 52 kings at that time. And just because the celebration and the release of the celebration was done, and that's how the tradition is going on. So we were able to do lots of things, but because we are faith school, so we try to incorporate the Hindu and the Jain festival Diwali along with the Sikh festival as well. So it was amazing to see the spirit of students in the school. They were wearing traditional clothes and they were served free snacks, and we had extended assembly. The messages, again, it was all on Zoom, the assemblies we are doing. So on the positive note, I think we are trying to adopt this new normalcy in our school, in our little community here. So that's the relevance to share the importance that how it was done and why it was done. And now I'll come to the faith. Faith, this word, this definition, I think this lockdown has really changed us in so many shapes and forms. And I would say this definition has, if I would say from Sikh spirituality viewpoint, has taken a very different shift in my life. Because the spirituality tells us the faith is to have from within. So my focus from being faith, having that faith outsidely has shifted inwards. And I'm looking for being more faithful and more reliant on my own self. Because world is ever changing. People, as if I'm just listening to Linda, every day, those who've seen the people dying every day, that really shake you up. So when I was just listening and I was thinking how unstable this world is, this is completely some other end we are experiencing in this time. So what is something that I can rely upon? Human being is no more a reliable thing. One day the person is with you and the second day the person is not with you. So what are you going to do? So you're so much dependent with someone you're living with, and that person is just gone like that. So what am I going to do? My faith is completely shattered. So I think due to that, having that background of Sikh spirituality, I started looking into the real meaning of faith, which was going more inward, searching that more reliable source, that source of bliss. And it has completely changed my thinking towards being or taking a sense of faith. It's completely changed. I am a very different person if I see myself a few months before. So yeah, and even taking that perspective, I think when I was looking for all that, I tried to help the students by sending messages, by telling them from the quotes from our scripture that this is the reality. The world is, whatever we see outside is ever changing. Everything is changing. Only thing that is stable is something within you, which you have to find. So the concept of faith has completely changed during this lockdown, and I'm on a very different journey. And from that perspective, that's how I'm trying to, I wouldn't say teach, I'm just trying to help my students to understand, to tackle problems like bullying we face, racism, anything. So I think it's helping me a lot better than looking the definition of faith outside than inside. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was very powerful, and I'm sure people will have resonated with it, and we can pick it up afterwards. So just moving on now, thank you so much for that to Linda. We've heard a bit from Linda already. Reverend Linda Hilliar is an Anglican priest and has been working in Slough since 2007. She's now officially retired, haha, whatever that means, but is still volunteering in the parish of Upton cum Chalvey and is chaplain to the 153 Slough Squadron of the RAF Air Cadets. So Linda, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. And as we said at the beginning, this is my personal thoughts. They're not the thoughts of many Christians, not even the Christians necessarily in the parish in which I work or my friends that are here. But I have a relationship with God in and through Jesus. And for Christians, our relationship with God is understood and defined by the understanding that Jesus is not just a prophet, but that Jesus is God incarnate. And my faith and life are underpinned by that understanding of God in his infinite wisdom, chose to experience what it was like to be human. God chose to experience all that we as human beings experience in a lifetime. So for me, God's birth as a human being 2,000 years ago, the person we know as Jesus, is the most amazing event since creation. I've absolutely no problem in believing that the Virgin Mary conceived a child because God decided that's what he would do. If he could make the universe out of nothing, I'm pretty sure he could easily place a child in Mary's womb, a child which, if you like, has the DNA of God. And that for me is a fundamental truth, which is recorded in the gospel messages in the New Testament. And that truth for me has not changed over 2,000 years. But whilst my faith here and now is underpinned by that, the way I live my life and express my faith is through looking at the writings of those early writers and theologians, the Old Testament writers, the Jewish writers, the medieval writers, and asking myself what God is saying to me in the context of being a woman, a wife, a mother, a priest, and someone who's now an old age pensioner. So I'll just examine one text for us, perhaps a text which underpins everything else, or I could be here all night and bore you to death, I think. During Jesus' life, the priests, the learned people, and the lawyers were always trying to catch him out and discredit him. As you know, he was born a Jew, and the 10 Commandments were the first set of laws and still very important to us all. Although over the years, many other laws have been added and details fleshed out. So one of the experts wanted to know which commandment was the most important commandment. And this is Jesus' reply as recorded in 3 of the Gospels. The most important commandment is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. So my faith as a follower of Jesus means I am called upon to love God unreservedly. And I do love God, but not as much as he loves me. And because he calls me into a relationship with him, I will state publicly that in my ignorance, I disagree with him at times, just as my sons disagree with me as they've grown up. It's okay, I think, for us to question God if we don't understand something or if we disagree with him over something. And I think a lot of us at the moment are saying, what's this all about, God? What's this coronavirus thing? Why aren't you doing something about it? We've had enough of this now. Not just the easier things, which might not be able to put our arm around somebody or shake their hands, but to be actually separated from those we love, not able to hug our children who don't live with us, not able to see grandchildren, and of course losing so many people. And I reflect that it's really easy to love my family and friends, but I'm called to love everyone. I'm called to love the abuser, the criminal, the murderer, the dictator, those of all faiths and those of none. And I'm called upon to give to anyone in need. A very simple example: I don't ask the homeless person sitting outside the station what his faith is, or have you been in prison? I ask if I can buy him a cup of coffee and a sandwich, and I tell him my name and I ask him his. On a personal level, I'm pretty sure that the love I have for my family is greater for having a relationship with God, because God's the source of all love. And those that live in love, live in God, live in love. I'm grateful to be part of a loving and supportive family who acknowledge my calling as a priest. Some women don't have the luxury of that. And I'm grateful to the town of Slough for all that it teaches me about God's love across all the faiths, God's love for all people. And being in Slough also teaches me that we need to be one community, regardless of what our faith is. And I'm grateful for all the opportunities I've been given, which help me to know more about God. And that leads me to say how frightened I am to realise how little I do know about God as well. But I will say that he's love. That I do know.
Thank you so much, Linda. Much to reflect on there for sure. And it was a very honest account, which is great to hear. So thank you for that. And just to remind people, if you have any questions, do keep them in mind or write them down or put them in the chat, and we'll pick them up hopefully a bit later on. So handing over now to Sana Malik, who was born and still lives in Slough with her family. She's studying international relations at Queen Mary University. She's a volunteer at one of the most brilliant organizations on the planet, with one of my favorite people on the planet, Rob Deeks. So I'll hand over now to Sana. And if you can just maybe say a few words before you start your other bit, Sana, about the organization that you're part of, that would be great. So thank you for being here, and you're very welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I've noticed how I'm the only young person, so if I seem nervous, it's purely because it's a bit. Anyway, may peace and blessings be upon you all, and assalamu alaikum. So if let me introduce ICSOF firstly. ICSOF is a young people's charity that works with young people in tackling like community issues and making the community a more cohesive place. We work with we work from children from the age of 11 to all the way to 19, and I started ICSOF a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, if I remember off the top of my head. And it was, I started with a talk, and then I ended up falling in love with it. And then since then, I've been active in their presentations, in their international programs, in their cultural heritage programs, and like, ICSOF have given me so many opportunities, and it's one of the biggest blessings of my life, because where I have reached, I wouldn't have been able to reach without them. But anyway, moving on. So shout out to Rosa, I know she's somewhere in there. Anyway, what faith means to me. Faith, as a young person, you always believe, like a lot of young people I've come across, they don't consider faith as an important factor. But with me, I've been taught from young that the only thing that stays with us till the day we are buried is our faith. And faith, I will be honest, faith was always a weak topic within me, because I didn't have the strong connection that I was but now, since COVID and since my friend passed away last year, may Allah bless her in Jannah, Ameen, it changed everything for me. I realized that the only thing in life that is promised is death, and it made me increase my worship, my charity, and a lot of other things across Islam overall. Faith is something that has held me together. It's something that's given me a structure. Like, I've been in school, yes, but it's in school I was being able to remember that I need to pray, I need to go out. We have the 5-day prayer, 5 times a day pray. 5 times a day we pray, and it starts from sunrise and all the way till after sunset, and it gives me a day's structure, and it gives me that, like, I don't know how to explain it, like a routine. Like, I have to sleep during the night and then wake up for Fajr, and then I start my day from there. And without God's blessing, I feel like sometimes my day feels incomplete. And with COVID, it's changed everyone's perspective altogether. COVID has taught us all that without faith, we completely all feel empty, in all sorts of religions. But personally with me, Islam has helped me get through it. And my sister-in-law's father passed away because of COVID, and it changed a lot for me, because he was someone I regularly saw, and I was unable to go to his funeral. And me, I've always been a person who prays, or the salat of janazah of someone who even I'm not related to. Like, I've always just prayed it, because the more praise you get, the more blessings you may receive. And I was so upset that I wasn't able to pray their janazah, but at the end of the day, I knew I could make dua at home for them, and that having that faith strengthened me to get through COVID. It gave me that routine. It allowed me to keep my brain like moving, because you know, a lot of my friends, they just completely collapsed. A lot of my friends struggled through COVID, and I did have days where I struggled, but if it wasn't for me having faith, I would have been even worse. And one quote from the Quran, a verse from the Quran that helped me get through is, with hardship, and this has helped me get through a lot, because with every obstacle that comes in the way, every struggle that we face, there will always be a way out. There's always some form of hope, and that's something that's always got me through things. This might be short, but I wanted to keep it short because it's the best way to describe Islam, because there's a lot you can say. I can be here all day, but I'd rather keep it short. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Sana. And for someone who was nervous, you did a fantastic job. Didn't look nervous, and everybody's giving you applause.
Julie, can I just? I've got to leave now because I've got to FaceTime a member of my family. But can I just say that when I met Linda on the squash court 40 years ago, I didn't realise she would be such an inspirational chaplain. So thank you, Linda, for everything you do.
Thank you so much.
God bless everybody.
Thank you for being here. Thanks, Dennis. Take care. God bless. Thank you so much for that, Sana. It was a brilliant, and sometimes less is more. And you summed up lots of very personal and big stuff in a very short, succinct way, and that was beautifully done. So well done. Thanks for being here. So last but not least, we have Councillor Madhuri Beddy, who was elected to Foxborough Ward in 2016. She's a fantastic, caring, committed councillor. We are very, very lucky to have her in this area. And she and I have developed a great friendship over the last year or so, and I'm very grateful for that. She's the founder of the Vishal Foundation, a Slough-based charity that supports parents and families who've had to endure the pain of losing a child to miscarriage, neonatal death, or other causes. So Madhu, over to you. Please do give us also a kind of snapshot of Diwali. We've all been hearing the fireworks. Of course, not all of them are for Diwali, but certainly some of them have been. So please just give us a snapshot of Diwali before you then move into the commentary of the question. Thanks for being here.
Namaste, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you, with everyone. So Diwali. Diwali is for Hindus, the equivalent of Christmas. We give out sweets, we give out presents, you wear new clothes, you decorate your house, and it's the biggest festival throughout the year, eagerly awaited by everyone. Diwali goes, so in Hinduism, you have 3 religious books, the Vedas, the Mahabharata, and the Ramayana. So Diwali stems from the Ramayana, and it's when our king, Lord Ram, came back from 14 years of exile, and there's a lot that goes into it. It's but the main meaning of Diwali is good over evil, and the Diwali is a universal message. The good over evil is a universal message that everybody can relate to. And you hear the fireworks, but I don't know if anyone's seen the diyas that are in. So I have one here for everyone to see. So this light is a diya, and these are in everyone's homes, in their gardens. You'll see them in schools, you'll see them everywhere. And the reason of this, when Lord Ram was coming back from the forest, from exile, in the journey, villagers throughout put these diyas so that he could find his way home. It's a really, really beautiful meaning. And Hinduism, a lot of it is related to light, the light that we find within ourselves, and a light that shines this way. So Diwali is all, the main message really is good over evil. So as Julie has explained, I'm honoured actually to be a councillor in Slough. And I'm honoured to be on this platform and share this platform with all of you, inspirational women that have spoken today. I just want to take a quick opportunity to congratulate Julie on her MBE. I'm so fortunate to have, like all of you it seems, have worked with Julie. She's touched our lives, and I think she doesn't really, she's very modest in what she does. She does so much, and really well done. I'm so thrilled. I feel like your MBE is an MBE for Slough. So really, really well done.
so much for saying that. Thanks.
So for me, you know, I know a lot of you. I'm very fortunate, and what I see in what you speak about your religions is actually all of our religions are entwined. You know, Sybil, you spoke about the you know, how people come after death and food is brought, and we have that. And you know, I noticed so many similarities. There's so much that unites us rather than divides us, and that's, for me, is what faith is. For me, that's what's really important. And if I think of COVID, I have been really blessed in this time, because I haven't just worked with the Hindu community. I've been in a church, I've been in a mosque, I've been in a gurdwara. You know, I've luckily been able to go everywhere and actually see the best in people. The way, I know everywhere has come together, but I can speak of Slough, seeing it personally. The way people have just come together. You know, we have these titles, councillor, but we're nothing. It's the community that actually, I'm in awe of them. The way they've come together at this time and, you know, fed people, looked out for people. And you've had these champions just coming along, and without them, you know, people have suffered, but they would have suffered so much more. Loneliness and isolation is the equivalent of 15 cigarettes a day to your health. And that's a really shocking statistic. And that so many people have suffered, but the champions within our community have really, really supported. So I've been really fortunate to see that. And one thing I've noticed throughout COVID, and as it started, you saw people like Prince Charles do the namaste. You saw a lot of people not shaking hands, and you saw the namaste, and you see that in, you know, film stars. And I noticed it a lot, but I wonder to myself, does anybody actually know the true meaning of namaste? Because there is such relevance in that. So Hindus, we believe that the body is a vessel, and it's the soul that is forever transforming. We believe in afterlife, and we believe the soul is pure. So as we are born with these souls, and as we grow, we learn other emotions like greed, jealousy, anger. We learn all of these emotions that actually don't touch our soul. And so we have to remember, whatever a person is going through, like Linda alluded to, we don't know what a person has gone through in their life. But what we do know is their soul is pure, and that will remain throughout life. So when we say namaste, that means that we are bowing to that person's soul. We are saying, may the light within me honor the light within you. And for me, that is what faith is all about. So I'm Hindu, and I love that I'm Hindu. I love the festivities and all the things that would go with Hinduism. It's a very, very peaceful religion, as are all religions. But what I've learned throughout my life, my 50 years now, is that I think, without realizing it, my parents instilled in me, in all of our siblings, that everyone is one. So how I see faith is that we all have our religion, and then so there's a big home with lots and lots of windows, and it's the window that you look out of is your religion. But inside, when we're in this big home together, it is humanity, it is humility. That is how I see faith, that is how I see religion. And for me, that is really, really very, very important. That's a very important part of my belief. And I think that is something that's led me to become a counsellor. That is something that's led me to do the Vishal Foundation, which supports parents and families who have lost babies and children. So for me, it's all religions and people of no religion. For me, everyone is equal. Everyone is the same. And I feel it is our duty as the human race. We walk the same path in this world together. We all have a story to tell, but the main story is our connection and how we can support each other within that. That is, to me, is my faith. And I guess, you know, the few people, Linda, the few people I've worked with would have hopefully realized that in me, that is the most important thing. And that's something that I've carried with me for forever. And I was telling Julie earlier that my parents, when they came from India, they actually landed in Slough. From Heathrow, they came to Slough. And Slough is where they were given a home, and they were given a sense of community. And they moved from Slough and they moved to London, but I got married to a gentleman from Slough. So at the age of 25 years ago, I moved to Slough, and it's such an honor for me to be able to serve that community within, you know, where my parents were given a shelter, really, because it's very difficult to come from another country and set up, you know, in a totally foreign land, but they were given so much. So it's really lovely for me to be able to serve here. So for me, that is, you know, I have my religion, but my faith is something that's, I just believe that we're all one. And I think hearing all of your stories, actually, that's what I'm getting from all of you. And I'm just really, I guess I've seen COVID in a different way. I've seen loss, like Julie said about Shobnam, and I've seen many people lose. I've also seen domestic violence and had to deal with so many different issues being a counsellor. But seeing the best in people has really actually built my faith in humanity. It's built it more, and I hope it continues to do so.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm sure, again, much food for thought for many people. So thank you to all of our speakers. Before we go on to any of your questions or comments, I want to just hand over now to Linda. Is Linda here? And unmute herself. Yes, there. So if you unmute yourself, Linda. So Linda is from the Slough Happiness Collective and is going to share with us a lovely poem and also just give us a snapshot of what is or who are the Slough Happiness Collective. Let me just share my screen so that we can see the poem that Linda is going to read for us. Linda, over to you.
Okay, just really briefly, the Slough Happiness Collective, we're actually a teeny weeny constituted group of 6 people from Slough plus whoever we gather in, and our mission is to spread happiness in Slough and beyond. So we do things like bring people together for festivals, for workshops, and we pop up at events. So there is an interfaith event most summers in Slough, Windsor and Maidenhead in the High Street. We've popped up there, for example. Yesterday we had a festival for World Kindness Day, our first online. And listening to all of you, I think there is just so much that comes together in our belief in the power of light over darkness, good over evil, that we are all one, and that in spreading kindness, we impact not only ourselves because it's good for us and it's proven to be good for us, but other people, and that there's a ripple effect from that. So I think we all have a faith in there's something bigger than all of us, that we are all one humanity, we are the human race. I deliberately chose that background because of the light shining there off of Earth, and us all being part of that together. So I just wondered if you could humour me and join me in this poem, because it is a way to make ourselves smile. But what I would encourage you to do, and I'm sure you will do it anyway, but our mission is to spread a smile through Slough. So we always smile and greet people on the street, And obviously a smile is safe in COVID times. You can do it at a social distance. And I'd just like you to keep that smile going if you can. So let's start. 1, 2, 3. Smiling is infectious.
Smiling is infectious. You catch it like the flu.
When someone smiles at me today,
I started smiling too. I walked around the corner and someone saw me grin. When he smiled, I realised I'd passed it on to him. I thought about the smile and then realised its worth. A single smile like mine could travel round the earth.
So if you feel a smile begin, don't leave it undetected. Start an epidemic and get the world infected. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda, for that. And so anybody, you know, the best place to look, the Slough Happiness Collective, I think you have a website, which is
the happinesscollective.weebly.com. Yep. Or you can just use @HappySlough on any of the social media tags.
Yeah,
I'm so honoured to be part of this. Thank you very much, everyone.
No, thank you for being here. And in fact, there's an Islamic teaching that says that even a smile is sunnah, meaning a charity or something good. So it's essentially giving away, you know, giving something to someone in like a charity. So it's commonly quoted by Muslims in various different ways. So does anybody have any questions or comments? Not sermons, please, because we often get those on these things. We don't need any sermons, but anyone who's got any comments or reflections or things that have come up for them as our speakers were speaking, please feel free, put your hand up. Or
may I just read briefly what's on the chat lines?
Yeah, please do.
Linda from Happiness Collective. Faith means doing one best to better this world. What a lovely sentiment, Sybil. Thank you. Saima, beautiful, thank you. Mary, God is love. Rosa of Exat says Sana is a huge asset to Exat team. Thank you, Sana. Keith says, what was the verse you quoted at the end, Sana? And Sana says, with hardship comes ease, Quran 94:5. Linda Bosley says, Exat is a great asset to Slough and its young people that partake should be proud of the work and activities they do. And Sundas, it has been wonderful to hear from the speakers. I'm going to have to leave now. Look forward to watching this later. Much love and prayers. Irena also said, thank you all speakers. Great stuff. I'm sorry I have to leave. I put a post, what Linda mentioned was the Interfaith thing, was 3-town initiative, the 3 interfaith organizations of the 3 towns called Swami. We have done it 3 years. We couldn't do this year, unfortunately, due to COVID. And Linda said goodbye. I hope to meet you again.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to say? Just put your hand up. Anyone? Yeah, Linda?
I would like to comment on the fact that all of us who are people of faith have found COVID-19 particularly difficult because it has affected the way we celebrate together. For Christians, Easter is a very important time for us. We usually have a walk of witness on Good Friday in Slough. We gather in the town centre. We couldn't do that. We couldn't be in our churches to celebrate together. We couldn't do all the things that are important to us. What you will see if you're a non-Christian in our shops is Easter eggs and chocolate and bunnies. That really hasn't got a lot to do with the Christian message, but they're still fun things to have. And I'm sure all faiths around their core message have those fun things for families and children. We are unable to sing, which is a huge loss to us, because singing is prayerful, singing is joyous. We have really, really struggled. We don't have to be good singers, but we sing to God because we want to praise him and we want to encourage each other. We find it very, very difficult. And the core of, for many people, in terms of worship, is actually a communion service when we receive the bread and wine. We can't do that in the same way. We cannot give wine to people present. They can have the bread, the wafers, if we can manage to meet together. But while we're apart, it's very difficult. We talk about spiritual communion, but it's not the same. We don't receive that. And it's a huge, huge loss, a bereavement for many, many Christians. Just as I know that, you know, not being able to celebrate Diwali, I think you got Purim in, I think you were saying, Sybil, but other things, Passover must have been difficult. It is really, really hard for us who are community. It's not the same.
Yes, it's interesting you bring that up, actually. I think for Muslims, the biggest for us was Ramadan. And of course, there is normally a very community element to that. Actually, most Muslims that I've spoken to, once we kind of got over the shock of not being able to do that, actually, most Muslims that I've spoken to said it was probably one of the most spiritual Ramadans they've ever had, because it very much was then about the personal relationship with God, much more than going out to eat break our fast with others, etc. Which, of course, you miss that as well. But I think from a spiritual perspective, it very much got us to look inwards, a bit like Harukiret was saying earlier. It's very much an inward thing, and it really forced people, and also to look beyond the building of the mosque, or in your case, the church. And I think it's fascinating how that's been the case, that people have had to re-look at what their relationship is with the actual building and look at how the faith means things beyond that, which I think is fascinating. And I would just say that I was part of the roundtable discussions with the faith minister when we were talking about, with all of the different faith groups, talking about places of worship and how we reopen and all of that, you know, after the first lockdown. And I would say that the government really did put, I know it's been very difficult for people to take it, that we can't reopen and then we shut again, then we open for individual worship and all of that. But I think from a government perspective, there was a real effort to try and do their best to create guidelines that suited all the faiths, which isn't easy. And of course, within each faith group, there are different ways of doing things. And so there was all of that stuff to navigate as well. And I would just say that they did their best to try and create some guidelines and really did care about the faith communities and brought people on board to talk about that. So I felt that was quite a big part of what happened there. Anyway, thank you for that, Linda. Has anybody else got any comments that they'd like to make after hearing whatever they've heard? Please put your hand up and feel free to say. Anyone? Yeah, Richard? If you just unmute yourself, Richard. Richard, you're on mute at the moment. We can't hear you. That's the phrase of the year, isn't it? You're on mute. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah. As the lonely man.
There's another man here.
Yeah, there are.
A couple more. Yeah.
I'm active in the interfaith things in Slough. I'm an itinerant lay minister around the Anglican and Methodist circuit in the area. But of late, I've been on Zoominar, involved in a group, Scientific Medical Network, where we've been talking each week on mainly consciousness, the consciousness of the cell, of the brain, of the soul, of the cosmos, and looking across that whole area. And we're going to talk on Monday evening, another session, and I'm interested in the dynamic of the female, the couple, and the male. It was introduced at our last meeting. Someone started to talk about the divine female. And that led on to a discussion about the divine couple and the divine male. And we're going to be tackling this in some depth. Now, listening to the ladies talking, you talk in a group of ladies in a slightly different way than you might in a mixed group. When I attend a men's breakfast, which there are a number of those around the area, again, the dynamic of the group talking about matters of faith and interfaith is different from if it were a mixed group. And my question really is, this has been billed as the women of faith in Slough. So it's focused principally on women, and I'm enjoying sitting and listening to that subtly different dynamic. Is there a different dynamic? Should we be perhaps more open about the audience of the divine female, the divine couple, or mixed, and the divine male? Or, because we keep getting this protest, you know, women have, we've had a session this week on women in engineering. I don't know why my daughter refused to join any women in engineering group, because as far as she's concerned, she's an engineer. Also, when she's in a church, she's a churchgoer, a Christian. She will never identify with a women's group. So I'm trying to learn, and I need help.
Well, I would just say I have a daughter who's an engineer who also struggles with some of the focus on women in engineering, because she also sees herself as an engineer. But I think, I mean, I'll offer it to any of the other panelists as well. But for me, as somebody who's been involved in community work in Muslim communities and in interfaith spaces for 25 years now, a lot of the time there's an over dominance of male speakers, let me say it like that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the answer is to then only have female spaces, because that isn't necessarily the answer. And I have a lot of Muslim friends who struggle with doing women only stuff because they feel that's almost going the way that we don't need to go, which is the other way. But I just think that it was refreshing to be able to invite just women speakers from these different faiths, where normally, many times still now, I can see Muslim events with all male panelists regularly, and I don't feel okay with that. But does anybody else want to respond to what Richard has said? Sybil, or yes, Sybil?
I would love to. I mean, you know, because God is neither male nor female. I personally struggle with this idea of talking about a divine male or divine female, because God is divine, end of. I think there's a tendency that we all create God in our own image. And historically, because men were the spokesman for religion, that's why God is so often referred to as he. I try very hard not to refer to God as male, but it's very, very difficult. You'll find yourself saying God, God, God all the time because you don't want to say he. I suppose now with the whole sort of transgender issues and non-binary, we can talk about God as they, but then you have the problem that, you know, God is not plural, God is one. And so it's a real issue. But I think it's only an issue that women recognize because of the fact that it has been male language for millennia. I think we're very much at the beginning of this. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Harukiret, yep.
Hi. Yeah, I was just listening. This is very interesting. Giving that status to female, I know it is very difficult, the equal status. And this has been happening, I think, going back to the history, if I know, being a Sikh, Guru Nanak Dev Ji started the moment where he wanted that females to have that equal rights and equal status. So he promoted lots of equality, and he, through by creating, writing the hymns in the Gurbani itself, So kyo manda akhiye jit jamme rajan, why call a woman who gives birth to kings? So he tried to give lots and lots of equal status. Sati Pratha, if you know, all the female had to die along with their dead husband. So he said, no, this is not happening. Why? This is just a body. Underneath, the soul is same. We feel the same thing. So this was a huge moment run at that time, where all the Sikh gurus, where they really advocated that females should lead the congregation. They are not meant just to be in the kitchen raising kids. They have same opportunity to reach that salvation and have that spiritual experience, because inside we all are same. So this was completely condemned, and I am so proud that I'm such a confident woman today, be Sikh woman, because I follow all those guidance, all those messages, strong messages, which were so strongly. And he actually revolted and he condemned all the beliefs which were going from years and years, that please stop doing that. This is something completely insane. It makes no sense. Male and female born from the same system, inside everything is same. So why this, you know, kind of differentiation we are giving, and superiority and all that in the society that really lets us down. So yeah, I would say, I think being I don't know, from very beginning, I know there is a cultural things which are happening even in Sikhism, Sikh families and Sikh, but if you look at the spiritual side, and if you try to explore the spirituality of Sikhi, it gives you a power of a very different level, and you become quite a fearless person.
Yeah, I mean, sounds very familiar to me as a Muslim too, and everything you just said is exactly the same for us too. And the you know, it's very clear, but unfortunately it's manifested itself in very different ways nowadays. Anyone else got any comments, not necessarily on this point, but maybe we'll see if anyone's got a question on a different topic maybe, or anyone else got a comment they'd like to make? Linda, did you have your hand up about this point?
I did. It was about this point, really. I mean, there is still a movement within some denominations of the Christian faith. Roman Catholics will not have a woman priest. Some Anglican churches will not have a woman priest, and it is very difficult. And they will hark back to 2,000 years ago and say that all of Jesus' named disciples were men, but actually they then disregard the huge following of women that were around Jesus and were very prominent, and that in medieval times we did have a bigger voice. Women had a bigger voice in the church up until, say, 25 years ago. I just want to tell a story which some years ago, my family and I went to the Mormon temple, and I can't remember where it is now, Salt Lake City. And when you go in, you get a tour, and you stand under a flag, and they find somebody who speaks your language to take you round. So we dutifully stood under a Union Jack. That says something. If you spoke English, you all had to stand under the Union Jack. And my husband's sons and I were taken around by a girl, and I had to question her on the fact that it was only men in authority, and that they have the largest women's organisation in the world because they're not allowed to be part of the whole organisation. And I can remember my sons telling me off, and sort of getting closer and closer and squashing me and saying, "You're battering her, mother, you're battering her. It's not her fault." And I thought, well, I know, but she needs to be enlightened. But I don't think it was really that I should be doing that. But I really struggled no end when we do have these distinctions all the time over sex and gender. It's time it comes to an end, really.
Aisha, did you have your hand up? Did you want to say something, Aisha? No? She's eating.
I just a final comment. My question hasn't quite been answered yet, because as far as I'm concerned, equality rules. I think in the Anglican arena, increasing numbers of leaders are female. If you go to any church, they're dominantly female, and the men can't sing the hymns because the register is too high. But men do have their breakfasts, and around the Slough area, there are quite a lot of men's groups who talk about things as men. I'm listening to this group talking about things among a group of women, and I'm really saying, in the past, I've never recognized the need for separate, but I think I'm leaning towards, in our discussion during this coming week, to say there is a need for a congregation of women to talk about the soul and a congregation of men to talk about the soul. Yes, they are different. I've gone way beyond equality. We have to go beyond.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Can I just say something? Yeah, go on, Aisha.
Well, I was just going to say I quite agree with that gentleman there, actually, because I think we've been talking for I don't know how many generations now about how women don't have any say and women don't do this and the cultures and da-da-da. But the thing is, you just have to get along and go and do what you need to do. And to be as firm and as strong as you can, not in a bad way or rude way, but just get on with the job in hand. Otherwise, we're still going to be chatting about this in another 30 years' time. There's no point in us wanting to do something and make something if we're not just going to go forward and just do it. However much, we go to an area or a place and the men there don't want it to happen, we have to actually be firmer than we've been. Because all we're doing, even after all these generations, is still talking about the same subject.
Yeah, Madhu?
I was just going to say, I actually agree with Richard, and it's not just in a religious platform. I helped organise a group called Men's Matters in Slough, Windsor and Maidenhead. And it's the same. It was, purely a group for men because the dynamic somehow did change. Even if I went there to see them, the dynamic changed. I don't know why that happens, but I do agree with Richard. It is something, and this point, Julie had actually said, the same, Julie, that, it would be better if it's lovely to have you men here, lovely, but it would be better because the conversation is different. I don't know why, but Richard, I do agree with you.
But I think Sybil's point about, in a way, we're just starting. One thing I can say, I mean, even in my short lifespan so far, it feels a long time, but actually in the scheme of things, it's short amount of time that we have in our life. I've already seen a shift. If I think about Muslim women and the shift in terms of coming together much more to challenge and to say, sorry, we're not having this anymore. This is not our faith. This is culture. This is everything else. And we're not going to just take it anymore. And so I think as Muslim women, we're kind of rising in terms of, and have been for a long time. I'm not saying it's new, but I can certainly see a shift. I think in general in the world, there's a movement of women from different backgrounds saying, which is what I like about this group, because this is, for me, sisterhood of different faiths. Often Muslim women are seen as, the poor Muslim women that need saving by everybody else. We don't need anyone to talk about us like that.
No.
What we actually need are people to walk with us and for us to work together as women of faith to challenge the patriarchal stuff that isn't from our teachings. I feel very strongly about that because I think that that's happening more and more. But this is a big topic, and of course there's lots of other concepts and around gender anyway that's coming, that are coming through more and more. Sybil, did you want to say something else?
Yes, I did. I'm just going back to that. I think there is perhaps a slightly cultural difference working here with Christianity and maybe Judaism and Islam. In Judaism, women have been talking to each other for 4,000 years. They've been talking to men for about 30. And so it's a different perspective. Men, for us, the experience of talking equally across the gender is very, very new. I mean, I said 25 is an exaggeration, 50, but it's still, it is such a new thing, and this is still having to be negotiated. And so the idea of men's groups, which they do exist, but they have always existed, they're called prayer. Within Judaism, it's 10 men make minyan. so we're look, you know, I think different cultures are looking at it from a different point of view. But I do absolutely agree that the power of women coming together across the faiths can make huge differences. I think to our society generally, we've seen that, what happened in Northern Ireland, which was, you know, peace in Northern Ireland, which was brought about very much by Protestant Catholic women coming together. And I think that certainly can't be underestimated, and we really do need to work together in that way too.
On that note, I think it's 8 o'clock and I feel like we should wrap up. And sometimes what happens on a conversation like this is we feel like we're just getting started, but in a way, when you leave it like that, it's very good for us to then reflect on our own as well. And we could literally probably talk all night, but I don't think we should, because we've all got things to do and people to see and food to eat and beds to go to, whatever. So I just want to thank everyone again, all of you for being here, all of the speakers that gave so generously and made us all think and reflect, which is very important. And thank you to ML and David and the Slough Faith Partnership for doing this with me. And I hope that we can use this to then think about what we can do going forward as women, as men, as different genders, and different work that we need to do. There's certainly a lot that I think needs to be done in all our communities because of what's happening. Lots of people are going to lose their jobs. People are struggling on a daily basis. People are asking for basic food. We all need to step up and help those people that are struggling. And I just hope that we can continue. There's amazing work already going on, of course, in Slough, and I hope that we can all be part of that. The social enterprise that I've set up called Together We Thrive. I love the word thrive. I love the word together. So I brought them together. Togetherwethrive.co.uk is the website. Please have a look at that and just keep in touch with me through there. The Slough Faith Partnership website, I think, is sloughfaithpartnership.org.uk. Is it, ML? Yep.
Yes.
So I think, you know, let's use this as a way of re-energizing ourselves to do this work together, to see the commonality, as everybody has highlighted, because, you know, the world is very difficult at times, but I feel very encouraged by all of you spending time with all of us here, and I would just like to thank you for that. And now I'm just going to pass over to Madhu, who's going to take us out with a lovely kind of prayer, really, that she shared on Facebook, so I thought she could share it with us here, and I'm going to give her the last words. So Madhu, I'm going to share my screen. Thank you so much, everyone. Keep in touch, go well, keep safe, and remember us in your prayers, please, God willing.
Okay.
On this Diwali and Bandi Chor Divas, let us give thanks for all we hold dear: our health, our family, our friends, the grace of God, which never ends. Let us vow to live our lives in harmony, realizing our grudges, anger, and pains. Let us commit to live each day in peace and serve all those in need, regardless of race, caste, gender, or creed, remembering we are all part of one human family.
Amen.
Our thoughts go out to all the families who are facing this day of celebration and all the celebrations that have happened throughout this last year, and just thinking all those who have lost. Thank you.
Thank you. That was lovely.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Oh dear, I don't know what I'm doing.
Shall we help? Yeah.
Hi,
Shall
I
remove her? I can remove her if you want.
Oh, she's gone now. No, that's all right.
No, she's still here.
Elizabeth's here. Yeah.
We have two Elizabeths.
One with an S and one with a Z.
Yeah.
Okay. Elizabeth, do you need help to leave the meeting? Or shall I remove you?
Just press the cross at the top right-hand corner.
Press leave meeting.
It should say leave somewhere in red. You see that?
God bless you all. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Oh, okay.
Done it. Very good. It was
nice.
very good.
Yeah. Nice,
yeah.
wasn't it?
It went very well.
Yeah.
And I think there was 36 people. Some came in, some left, and in total we had 36 people. It went very well. So would you like me to pass the emails of those people, or shall I just send a thank you to everyone?
Yeah, send a thank you. I mean, I don't know if you've got all the emails. Some people may have come through the link, but whoever you've got, do that.
Yeah, whoever I got, I can send it. And
just
with
add
the link.
the websites. Yeah, the link to the recording and the website. We're still recording.
No, link to your website and our website. I don't know what will happen. We could say keep this what do we say? Watch this space. We will put the recording upon the websites. Yeah.
And then you just we're still recording, so you need to cut this bit out at the end. Make sure this bit's edited out.
Yeah,
it was really good. I think it's very nice and good. Lots of food for thought. So